And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Dialogues About Death show with your host, Chris Miller. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, Mary. Good morning.
Good morning. We are on episode 12, and in honor of Memorial Day that just passed, we are talking today about military honors and memories. So, if you are an active military member or are a veteran, you have so much good stuff coming to you. And today we're going to talk about it, right, Chris?
Absolutely. I'm honored. Yesterday was D-Day. We celebrated 80 years of the war, and we've honored our veterans yesterday a lot, and we honor our veterans every day. And
Right.
so, today we thought it'd be appropriate to talk a little bit about military benefits and some things that we can help them with. So that's what we're going to do today.
I love it. I love it. And my father was a veteran and passed away. And it was so neat to see all the way the military honors them in their passing, their service. We're going to talk more about that. But it was just so touching to me because he was in World War II,
Yeah.
which again, we're celebrating. And I thought, okay, that's a long time ago. They probably won't do anything, right? But no, like we had a flyover, we had a military salute, we got the flag. Like it was so beautiful. And I didn't think I'd be touched so much, Chris. And so I think it's so important. So if anyone here is watching today and you know someone who has been in the military, is in the military, um, or is thinking about going to the military, please sprinkle
Yeah.
this among your audience so we can
Absolutely.
give them information that they might as well. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments because we love to answer questions live, right, Chris?
We sure do.
Okay, so just a little side note, everyone. If you always wonder why
Yeah.
we're giggling when we first come on, we do this little warm up thing before the
Yeah, we do.
show, and it always cracks us up. I know we're weird, but I just think it's funny.
Yes, we
So
are.
everybody's like, "Why are they always laughing when they come?"
I know it's dialogues about death. We need to be serious about this,
We should
Mary.
be somber,
Let's be
yes,
serious.
but no, because we put, as we
No,
say, we put the fun in
we
funeral.
try to put the fun in education and funeral.
Right,
Yeah,
that's right. Okay, cool. All right, well, let's get into it. So, Chris, I'm going to go off, but I'd love for you to expound on this. The first question
sure.
that came in is, what are veterans' death benefits? I know it sounds weird, it's like planning for your death if you're a veteran, but there's a lot of benefits. So, please share that with us.
Sure. Yeah, there are a whole slew of veterans benefits, and even there's benefits before the time of their death. But what we're going to do is talk today about is just kind of how we help incorporate in transitioning veterans family with all their death benefits. And so let's kind of just first start off as there's kind of two levels of benefits. There's benefits for an active duty death. And if there's been a veteran that has actively been in serving in a war currently, and they pass away, the government actually steps in first and will handle most of the arrangements, and they will designate a specific liaison, depending on that branch of military, to attend to the family's needs. And they'll go to the family and they'll let them know that the death occurred, and then they will start the whole process of getting their veteran back here to the United States if it was abroad. And all the veterans from abroad go through Dover, Delaware, over there in Maryland, where they go ahead and they prepare the veteran. They do they'll do preparations across the world, but then they'll bring them back to Dover, get everything prepared, and then they'll ship them back to their hometown, wherever it is here in the United States. So the government will take care of all that free of charge to a family. So they will provide all the preparations of the body, all the transfer of the body. They will provide a casket for the family, and then they will give the family an allotment of around $7,000 for them to cover the funeral home's expenses in their hometown. And we'll work with the government directly, so the family doesn't have to worry about anything about that. If the family goes over that stipend of $7,000, then the family would have to pay the balance. But typically, since the government is covering all the transportation, the casket, all the cemetery fees, it's really just our basic fees. So I've never had a family go over really the $7,000 unless they want to get extravagant in the flowers and extra items that they really don't necessarily need for a service, but they can get them. So that is for an active duty veteran. Let's now talk about a veteran that has already served and is either retired with an honorable discharge from the government of their active duty. And that is, they can choose any national cemetery to be buried at here in the United States. We're really fortunate that we have 3 here active cemeteries here in California. We actually have one just 25 miles from us, the Riverside National Cemetery, which at the time that it'll be completely built out with all the deaths of veterans and spouses, it will be the largest national cemetery in the United States when it comes to interments. So, and we're really privileged and honored to have that cemetery just like 25 miles from our funeral home. So we do work with a lot of families that have veterans. We also have another veteran cemetery. It's Miramar, which is just south of us, near just out of the San Diego area. And so we have families that wish to be closer to San Diego, and we can drive down there and help them do an interment there. There's one other one in Central California in Bakersfield. There's a national cemetery there that is actively working. So we have 3 cemeteries, which are wonderful. They're all beautiful. They're all well maintained, and they're all work well with the funeral homes here in the area. What happens is when a family comes in that has lost a veteran, what we need to do is we first ask them for their honorable discharge, which is their DD 214. When we bring that document in, we will go ahead and make some copies of it. And then as we're scheduling services for that family, if they wish to use the national cemetery of their choice, then we will need to call the National Scheduling Center. The National Scheduling Center is based in St. Louis, and so we will call them and we will give them their wishes of what the family is requesting, the location, cemetery, time and day that they'd like to do the interment of their loved one. And that would either be for a burial of a casket or the interment of an urn if they like to go that way. So we process all of that. We usually ask the family for a couple options because the National Cemetery schedule funerals every 15 minutes. And so it's they give you a 15 to 20 minute time slot when you're out at the National Cemetery. So we need to have options because the time and day that they request might already be taken by another family. So we always ask the family for 2 or 3 choices as we're doing the schedule, so then we can have some options to work with. And so that's kind of the first step when it comes to some benefits.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Like $7,000, that's pretty generous, and that,
Yeah.
covers quite a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you just said every 15 minutes. When I said it earlier that my father received the veterans benefits, it seemed longer. So is it that, I mean, is there different levels, or maybe it's just because I was grieving, so I didn't know the time?
Sure. So what they'll do is they will give you a time. They schedule every 15-minute increments because there's, at least here at the Riverside National Cemetery, since it's such a high volume turnaround for interments for veterans, they have like 7 stages where they'll go out into the park and have little ceremonies. And then they have 7 staging areas. So they can kind of stage 14 families at a time. So
Oh,
that's why it's every 15 minutes because people are coming in and going out. And so as one leaves and one goes out. So they're scheduling them every 15 minutes. So then they can get almost 4 in an hour, but they can really almost get 6 or 7 in an hour. So once you're at the staging area where the little area of interment is, you have about 20 to 30 minutes. But as the turnaround, they're scheduling every 15 minutes to accommodate veterans so we can get as many in. At the Riverside National Cemetery, it's the highest volume cemetery in the United States.
wow.
They're doing anywhere from 45 to 65 interments a day.
Wow.
Yeah, over like an 8 to 9 hour period. They're scheduling basically from 9 o'clock in the morning until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They are scheduling interments every 15 minutes to get as many veterans and their spouses interred there.
Right. And you say interment, that is both a burial and a cremation, like sitting in
Yeah,
the
so
wall or
so
the
an
ground.
interment That is correct. So an interment would be an interment of a casket, and an urnment would be the interment of an urn is called an interment. And then
Interesting. Okay.
and they also have at the national cemeteries, they have the options, at least at Riverside, you have the option for an urn to either have your urn interred into the ground or into the niche, or that would be like the wall. So they
Okay.
have a whole columbarium of banks where urns can go into the wall. So when we're asking our families, would you like to have your urn buried, put in the wall or put in the ground? They have a choice.
That's really cool. As I said in
Yeah.
the last show, my in-laws are both in urns and they're in the same um, space. What do you call that?
Yes, the same niche. The
Niche.
niche.
Okay. Yeah. And it was very dear when we, in 2020, my mother-in-law passed away from a stroke. And so when we went to, for the urnment, I guess, and they opened it up, we saw dad in the urn, and then the gentleman said, would you like me to take a picture of it, like, oh, and you think that's weird, but at the time you're like, yes. And then when he
Yeah.
put mom in right next to him, he kind of like kissed him a little bit, like touched their little
Oh,
side, and then he took another picture. And I know that sounds weird to most people, but when you go through it, it's like, that
yeah.
is so sweet. Like, I don't know, it's just, and I know they're not in there, they're in heaven,
Yeah.
but it was just kind that the staff at the cemeteries are so, thoughtful for that. But I was curious, you said it's going to be the largest. What about Arlington National Cemetery? So are they full? So they can't grow anymore?
Yeah. Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia
Mhm.
is pretty much built out. So there's
Okay.
no more active interments. It would only be for they have a small section for high-ranking officials like some presidents or generals, or if there's a spouse of a veteran that has already been interred there, but it's really not open anymore for active interments.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah,
Yes.
I've been there before, and it is
Yes.
beautiful.
It's
But I was
beautiful.
thinking, I don't know if they have any space to grow. Oh, we have some people are watching us live. I love it. Good morning, Kathy and
Good morning.
Bill.
Good morning, Bill.
Wow, Bill's in Florida,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Bill, it is
Way
so
to go,
nice to see
Bill.
your face. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and hope it's beautiful there. Let us know what it's like in Florida right now. And then Kathy
Absolutely.
said they are honoring a veteran here at Cicero. Oh, right now. So
Oh,
Kathy is the funeral director at the La Sierra Chapel, which is in Riverside,
location.
California, and they're having a veteran service right now. That is lovely. And Kathy, I know
Oh,
you're probably busy, so if you have any little stories about some things that are going on. If you have time, we would love for you to share it because that's the other thing. If anyone's watching and wants to share something that maybe they went through as a family of a veteran or an active military, we would love to hear
yeah.
it. Because part of the show today, I'm going to be asking Chris some stories of some touching memories, since this is
Yes.
memorials, and so of what ways other people have also added to the veteran benefits for their family. So that's
Yes.
awesome. Okay, let's get to the next question here. So you
I was saying,
mentioned,
Mary,
oh,
before we go on to the next question, let me tell you
yes,
there's a few more benefits that the cemeteries offer. So I thought maybe I could just touch on those too before we move on.
of course. I'll go off
So
screen so you can share.
there you go. So also in addition to the interment or the grave site or the niche that is provided at the National Cemetery, the government also provides you with a minimum lawn crypt, and a lawn crypt is the container that covers the casket if it goes in the ground. They also would include a headstone or a government marker for you to be buried in the ground, or they'll have a plate that goes on the wall of the niche. You also need to realize that at the National Cemetery, a veteran also has benefits for their surviving spouse. So if there's a spouse to a veteran, they also have the privilege of being interred at any national cemetery next to their veteran. And so those are a couple extra items that are included. There's no cost to the family when it comes to a lawn crypt or a headstone or marker. Um, if a family wishes to do an upgrade for a vault, they can do that, and they can purchase that through the funeral home. and then they would get a credit for not using the lawn crypt. It's a couple $100 credit. So if a family elects that they want to have an upgraded outer burial container or a vault, they can purchase a sealed one at their own expense, but be reimbursed a couple $100 from the government for not using the one they provide for free.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay,
Yeah, you
awesome.
bet.
Yeah, that's nice. So the next question we have, because you talked about military in general, but there are
Yes.
different branches of the military. So I wanted
Yes.
to know, a couple of people asked, like, would there be a difference of someone who is in the Army versus the Marines versus the Air Force? So if you could kind of go specific on that, that was the
Sure.
question that came in. What do the various branches of service receive?
Sure. So all veterans receive the same type of benefits no matter what branch of military they are in. What they need to do, though, is they have to receive an honorable discharge. As long as it's an honorable discharge and they served, and it could have been serving just through basic training and maybe a day, or they could have served a full 20, 30 years of service, they would get the same benefits through the National Cemetery. It's only those that die in active duty get the extra benefits of the preparations, the casket, and the monetary part that goes to the family. What a veteran, though, as a regular veteran that has been retired with an honorable discharge, in addition to being interred at the National Cemetery with their casket or with their urn, they'll also receive military honors. And military honors will consist of a minimum of a two-man detail up to a full detail. Now, it's hard to say what a full detail is because a full detail is somewhere between maybe 8 to 12 more veterans. And that would be like a rifle team to do a 21 gun salute live. Also, like pallbearers to actually carry the casket in, and then the flag bearers that would present the flag to the family. So that could be a full honor team, and it will vary depending on the branch, depending on the availability of veterans there at that time. But typically, the military requires at least a minimum of a two-man detail, and that two-man detail, one of them would play a recording of a bugle of taps. Then they would do a folding of the flag and do the presentation to the family. So that's the minimum that would be done. Sometimes you might have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It can go up to about 12, depending on the branch. I would say most availability is the Marines typically have the most men in the area to do a larger team for a presentation of honors. And the Navy will send out a couple men, usually 2 to 3 from San Diego. They'll come up to Riverside. So it all depends on the location of the cemetery in proximity to where the bases are. And we're base rich. We're near Coronado. We're near March Air Force Base. We have the Marine base out in 29 Palms. So we have a lot of bases in the area. So we do have a lot of veterans. But we also have a group of retired veterans at our National Cemetery here in Riverside, and it's called the MHD, the Military Honor Detail. The family doesn't have to worry about this, but if we can't get a full team from one of the branches of military, we have retired veterans that want to give of volunteering their time back to those that have already served too. And so these are retired gentlemen. They range anywhere from in their mid 30s up to their 70s, and they just donate their time to provide honors to those that need to have the honors at our National Cemetery.
That is so kind. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
There's so many ways to give back in our communities. Like I'm familiar with SCORE, as you are, which is the
yes,
Society of Retired Executives that have retired and given their time back to help young businesses or businesses that are
yeah,
repivoting or revamping their business, which is so helpful. So it's so nice to hear that the veterans also have a program like that. What is it called
yes.
again? That they
It's called, we call it the MHD, the Military Honor Detail. And
okay.
this one is based out of the Riverside National Cemetery. I believe every national cemetery kind of has their own little volunteer veterans group that helps.
Okay.
And they come together and they do their thing. And again, we'll usually have at least a two-man detail, and then the MHD will help support maybe with a 6-man team or a 7-man team for rifles, or maybe they'll bring in a live bugler that day. So it all depends on what's available at the National Cemetery. So we'll always have like supplemental people adding into it to give the veterans a little bit more of an honor.
I love that. And so if so I reason I asked you to repeat it is that there might be a veteran out there that didn't know that they could do this.
Yeah,
So if this is something that interests
absolutely.
you, reach out to us,
And
put a comment in the thing or reach out to us privately and we will connect you with the people that can help you do that. I think that's a
that is
wonderful
correct.
way to honor those who you know, right, what they've been through,
Absolutely.
which is a lot. So
Yeah.
we also have some new people coming on. So Bill shared with us that he's enjoying retirement. Good for him. He
Nice.
used to be the funeral director at La Sierra, and then handed it down to the wonderful, capable, talented Kathy. And so we're excited to
Yes.
have her leading the charge there. But Bill, if you want to share any stories of maybe some veterans ceremonies that you were touched by or you thought were special, we would love for you to write that in the comments, and we'll share that. It might spark a memory for Chris as well.
There we
And
go.
Haley said, such an honor. So this is my daughter, and she was there when my father had the military honors for him. And then
Nice.
something that you just mentioned that I didn't realize because it's so realistic is that the bugler, I thought they were really playing, but it's a record. I'm like,
Well,
wow, they're good.
there are both. Typically, about 90% anymore. It's a recording, and it's a pretty good recording.
It is.
But
Yeah.
but every once in a while, we'll get a live bugler, which is very touching. Or sometimes we'll. I've been to either two or three funerals where we've had two bugles, and they do an echo of taps. Very gorgeous.
Oh,
That's really touching when you have this echo effect. It's really cool.
yeah, and you, like, hear it and it kinda comes back from the yeah, it's
Yeah,
really pretty. And
yeah,
the other thing that I think you mentioned was, the flyover.
yes,
So, I wasn't expecting that, and, you guys made that happen, and it was like, wow, like, it was so, like, it was like a and it sounds weird to say show of force, but it just was like this that they care, right? That it was
yeah.
just, something that they invested in their service. Anyways,
Yeah.
I could
And
wax
I
on.
was going to
Okay.
say we're fortunate, between the Riverside National Cemetery being next to March Air Force Base, and then the Miramar base is where like the Top Gun pilots are out of. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of flyovers actively all day long, and sometimes it just works out that it's for your family member. Sometimes it's just their drills and their training. But we're kind of honored to have all these flyovers constantly at our two local national cemeteries. It just kind of everybody has to pause and stop because you can't talk because the engines and the jets are so loud and they kind of fly. They kind of intentionally, I think, swoop down onto the cemetery, yeah, because they know the cemetery is right there next to the base.
Yeah.
So everybody just pauses and you feel the vibrations of the jets and everything. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you wave back. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
But yeah, but it's pretty cool. And I'm gonna believe that you guys arranged that. So, don't ruin my illusion that it
we
was just
did.
a coincidence.
Okay. Well, and there are times when it's definitely certain people they know connections. We personally can't, but there are family friends that have connections of connections, and they can make it happen. But it's something that doesn't happen all the time, but
Right.
it
I know it's
can
not a
happen.
promise. Yeah, it's not a promise.
It's never a promise, and it's something. It's typically of a someone knows someone that's way up there. They got to be way
Right.
above me even
Well,
to make it happen.
we
But
know a
it's
guy.
all on who you know. It's all on
Yeah,
who you know.
exactly. Well, you say you know a guy. We know a guy.
I
Yeah.
know guy. I know guy. The big guy.
Yeah, no big deal. Just a big
That's
guy.
right.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question that came in, we actually have. That's right. It's all about who you know, right?
It's all
So
about
in
who you know.
life, you got to keep those relationships. Never burn a bridge. Yeah, it's all who you
That's
know. That's right.
right.
I love it. Okay, so the next question that came in is: I know that Thomas Miller. One thing you guys excel at is all the details. Your
Yeah.
funeral directors are so good at making sure the families have a customized celebration. And
Yes.
in every aspect, you guys take care of so many details. So really, how do you get everything your loved one is entitled to? Like, so, and if you're active, like, what would you know that you will get. I know that sounds weird, but so if you could go through the because there's things that you handle so many details, but there might
We
be a
do.
couple of things the family needs to do, like if they know a guy.
Sure.
And I'll go off
So,
screen and let you answer that.
sure. So again, when a family comes to us and we're sitting during our consultation, and they say, "Oh, my husband or my dad was a veteran," we explain to them all the benefits that are available to them locally at our national cemetery. And again, we need to find out, was it active duty or was it a retired? And if it's active duty, again, we have to just pull away and allow the government to kind of come in and do it, and we're there to assist the family, but the government kind of comes down and says, this is what you're getting, this is what you're going to get, and it goes from there. What we do is then just help support the family on getting everything taken care of at the cemetery. When afterwards, though, if it's just a regular retired honor veteran, we will assist the family with all their benefits at the national cemetery, but some of them are entitled, if they were a disabled veteran, if they were receiving benefits because of an injury while they were in the military, their spouse is still entitled to some of those benefits. And so there are some phone numbers and things that we have that we put them in touch with, so then they can go ahead and continue receiving some of those benefits on behalf of their loved ones, sacrifice to our country with their disability that happened while they were actively doing. Also, we provide a flag for the veteran at that time. So we submit all the forms to get a flag so it can be draped over their casket or folded next to their urn. We also will supply them with what they call a presidential certificate. And that's a certificate that we can have with the veteran's name. And it's a certificate saying that the flag is being presented to them. And it's kind of like a presidential citation. So it has the signature of the president. It has like the American eagle on there, the seal of the president of the United States. And we can get that document to the family too. So those are some benefits that we help with our families. Also, we're fortunate enough here in the Southern California area that we have 2 or 3 VA hospitals. So our veterans, if they're coming to us and they're doing like a pre-need or they're just looking for information, we can also put them in touch with some VA hospitals and give them the right connections on reaching out for benefits through them. Besides hospital care, they have like mental health care. They have, if later in their years they become disabled some part, the veterans will come in and help them with that also. So there's a lot of benefits that we have like a little list of items that we can present to our family for them to research a little further if they're wishing to take advantage of some of those benefits that are offered through the government. And they should, because you know what? Their family member sacrifice. They gave up their time. They gave time away from their family, and they gave their time for us to have our freedoms that we have here today. And so I think it's extremely important that we make sure that we offer those benefits to our veterans because they're entitled to them. They're the ones that made the big sacrifice. And so I'm thinking it's like, you know what, we need to let them know of all the things that they could try to take advantage of to get what they need.
I love that you mentioned that. It's true. We are the home of the free because of the brave. And these people had a
Yes.
choice. I mean, I know there was a draft back then, but they had the choice to go and fight for our freedom. And we are so
Yep.
honored to have, I think we sometimes take it for granted that we
We do.
have so many benefits of being an American. And a lot of people, don't understand that. And I think that it's so important that we honor those who gave it all
Yep.
for us. I'm going to
Absolutely.
get all teary.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're now gonna the last thing we're gonna talk about today, and then we're gonna wrap it up, is military memories. So I'm sure there's some very touching stories that you have that of maybe a past military funeral that just really stood out as like something. So that might give an idea to someone who might be planning that in their future. So I thought that might be helpful for people to hear some of your stories.
Sure. So I also want to let people know sometimes people might have had a bad experience while they were in the military and they don't want to have anything to do with going to a national cemetery. But if you're a veteran, you can still get some of the benefits at a private cemetery. So maybe there's not a veteran cemetery close to your home and you want to just go to your old local hometown cemetery. You can still do that, and you can still get a government issued headstone for your grave, and we can help you apply for that. We work with the cemetery and we can help you with that type of benefit. So that's an additional benefit that we have for those veterans that may not want to use a national cemetery or may not be close to a national cemetery. They can still get some benefits of at least a headstone for themselves. In regards to a story or memory, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, years ago when I was at the National Cemetery, I was able to do a funeral for a high dignitary at the time, and he was buried out at the Riverside National Cemetery, and we were fortunate enough to use the amphitheater. And the amphitheater there holds a couple hundred people, and it's next to the lake out at the National Cemetery. And I just remember we had so many dignitaries from around the country because he was up in the Secretary of State. He was up in the presidential type of group of people, but he lived out here in Southern California, and so we had a lot of high dignitaries, and we had a lot of generals, a lot of admirals. We had a lot of people from high parts of all branches of military. And what was really cool is when you get all the multiple parts of all the different military branches, and they're all in their dress blues and all their uniforms, and they're all sitting together. Boy, it was just so touching. We had all the flags from every branch out there. And then, I mean, we had full honors. We had beyond full honors. We probably had like 25 to 30 honor team. We had, I mean, they had the pallbearers carrying the casket all the way from the funeral coach to the amphitheater was like 50 yards, and they had to carry this casket all the way in. They did not allow them to roll it in. And then we did have a flyby, but it was of one of those stealth bombers. It was one of the smaller stealth bombers, and it came right down over the lake, and it came right up over. And I tell you, it gave everybody the shivers and the goosebumps. It wasn't just a regular plane. It was one of those like secret, like invisible planes when they're up there. It was pretty cool, and I'll never forget that one day that I was able to be out there. And again, not all veterans would get a service like that, but to be a part of that was something really special, because that day the 100 and 150 family members and friends that were there, plus the military contingent that was there. There was probably close to 200 people there, and it was just a really special day that I'll never forget.
I love that. I love that. I think there's things in our lives that really like touch us, and being a part of something like that is really cool. Something you mentioned
Yeah.
earlier that I just wanted to reiterate it before we close is that you mentioned
Yeah.
a spouse benefit, and that's I think what's really like my mother passed away first, but since my father was in the military, she was able to be buried for free. I mean, like there was
Yes.
extra cost, of course, but does the spouse also get that $7,000, or is it just the free burial in the cemetery?
Yeah. Yeah. So the $7,000 benefit is only for an active duty military person. So it's someone that dies in the act of war.
Thank you. Okay.
So it's not for every veteran. It's only for those in active duty. Like we had last year in Afghanistan, the one young man he passed away. He was from Norco,
Yes.
and so when he came to Corona, we helped their family take care of that. And so, for instance, the government took care of all of his incidentals until he got back here to Corona, and then the family still had a stipend for additional things that were to cover some of the costs here in Corona.
Okay.
So it's
Because he
only
was
for
active. Okay. So thank
active
you.
military only.
Thank you.
Yes,
I wanted to get clarification. So if someone, so that's the reason that it's important to get funeral insurance or a plan, right?
absolutely. And we do, and we work with our veterans and their spouses to get their funeral plans in order. Again, we use any cemetery in Southern California. We can go, 50, 75 miles away to down to San Diego, Miramar. We can go there
Sure.
for a burial. We can go to the National Cemetery. We'll go up to Bakersfield if that's where you wish to be buried. So we'll use any national cemetery. The one in Los Angeles is full. It's been built out. There's no more interments at the Riverside or the Los Angeles National Cemetery,
Okay.
except for if there's a veteran that's buried there and the spouse needed to be, cremated and their urn go there. It's only very limited.
Okay. That's
Yes.
interesting. But I know because my father was in the military, I mean, he
Yes.
was a veteran. My mother was able to be buried. There was no cost to
Yeah.
the
So
cemetery, but
for
she had to
so
pay.
for
We
a
had to pay for everything.
regular Yeah, so for a regular veteran that has an honorable discharge, his spouse can also be buried in a casket next to him or
Okay.
put into an urn next to them. So a veteran can actually bury as many wives or as many spouses as he has. So if you're
Oh, I think we got stuck.
he can bury his next wife there and he can bury multiple wives there.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I know that they
But
are
then he has to
stacked,
decide where he's going to be buried after he dies.
right? But they're stacked. So do they?
No, no. So
No.
they'll only keep a spot next to the first one, and then the second ones will just be buried other places.
Oh,
So
okay.
the veteran will need to decide, does he want to be buried next to his first wife or next to his second wife, because then
Okay.
they'll leave a spot after that, and we have to
Wow.
go through paperwork to do that.
Okay. I was gonna say because they're
Also, one other thing I should mention in regards to a benefit for veterans. If a veteran and his wife have any disabled children that are dependent upon them, they also have the honor and privilege of being buried at a national cemetery. So if you have any disabled children, they can
wow.
be buried there too. So that is
Wow.
another benefit.
I didn't even know that. That's
That one just
amazing.
that one just popped back into my head. I
Just
forgot about that one.
triggered it. Yeah.
Yep.
That is really, really cool. I did not know
Yes.
that. But we had a couple more people jump on. So oh yeah. So Karen works at Valencia Terrace here in Corona. And
Nice.
so that's so sweet of you. Yes, they
Thank you,
definitely
Karen.
take good care of your residents, which is nice.
Thank you.
And Kathy says we are always so honored to serve our veterans and their families. That's wonderful.
We are.
And okay, so Kathy says, after 20 plus years in business, I never get tired of hearing taps. I get goosebumps every time I hear it. I know, right? I've been to a lot of funerals and every time it gets me. Like
Get you
I
right there.
yeah, it's just something about it. Yeah, it's just I tear up every time. Anyways, well,
Yep.
this was really great information, Chris. I really
You bet.
appreciate you taking the time to talk about our active military, our veterans, the different branches of what they get and what they can ask for. And that's one
You bet.
benefit of Thomas Miller Mortuary and all your subsidiaries, Walker Family Funeral Home and your Cremation Society of Southern California. Um,
Yes.
you help everyone with getting all the information they need so they don't miss out on
That's right.
anything. That would be kind of like, if you found out years later that you didn't get what was rightfully yours based on your time in the military, that would just be kind of
Yes.
a bummer. So we appreciate you guys take the time to make sure
Yes.
everything gets taken care of right. Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So this was the end of our show, and thank you everyone who came
All
on
right.
live to ask questions
You
and share
bet.
their thoughts. And if you guys have any questions about this, please just put them in the comments, and we'll circle back and answer them. And I look forward to our next dialogues about death show with our lovely host here, Chris Miller from Thomas Miller Mortuary. And if you have any other questions or want to look at any of the past shows, you can go to thomasmillermortuary.com and all the shows
Yeah.
are literally just click on the little blog button and it's the shows and you can see them all there.
All right there.
And yeah, and there's so much great information on the website. And also you can see all the Google reviews on each of your websites. I think is very interesting
Yeah.
because you want to make sure that you're picking a funeral home that has a track record of doing amazing. And you guys
Very good.
have a record number of positive reviews. It's amazing.
Yeah. We're rock stars. My staff, they're rock stars.
They are. Your staff is they're amazing. I love them. So, and then here's some phone numbers. Just again, wrapping up the show at Corona Chapel. If you're listening to this audibly, the Corona Chapel's number is 951-737-3244. And our La Sierra Memorial Chapel in Riverside is 951-687-0551. You could call with any question anytime. And as we learned last time when we were talking
Yep,
about all the memorabilia, you can go in and look at everything, and there's jewelry
absolutely.
and things you can get before you pass that is really cool. So,
Yep,
so I hope people will take advantage of that. So until
yep.
next time, Chris, thank you so much for this
You're
time.
welcome, Mary.
Yes, and we'll see you guys next time. God bless.
Wonderful. Bye bye.
Bye.